Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I bring you a video telling the tear-filled story of Hoai Ca and Officer Hung. After 20 years of separation, Hoai Ca finally found her biological father thanks to a DNA test that showed a perfect match. The moment the father and daughter met again, they stood still for a few seconds, and then, unable to hold back any longer, Hoai Ca threw herself into her father's arms. He trembled, and she burst into tears like a child, letting all the years of longing and loneliness break open in the embrace of her own flesh and blood. The two of them began their late reunion. Simple meals, old stories they thought had been forgotten, and peaceful moments they both once believed they would never have again. But that happiness did not last long. Only a week later, Hoai Ca's father suddenly developed a severe cough, each fit so long and intense that he could barely stand. When they took him to the provincial hospital, everyone hoped it was just an ordinary illness of old age. But the doctor's diagnosis struck the whole family like a plunge into a deep abyss. He had late-stage lung cancer, and the cells had already metastasized. Hoai Ca was devastated. She even wanted to sell the house she had saved up for over many years, just in hopes of buying a little more time for her father. Hung and his mother were also ready to help, not with much, but with all of their hearts. But her father firmly refused. He held his daughter's hand, his voice hoarse from illness but still trying to stay gentle. He only wished to spend the rest of his days with Hoai Ca, with his granddaughter, and to enjoy the simple meals he had never had during a lifetime of wandering. And so, that little family began living through fragile days. Warm because they had each other, yet filled with fear because they didn't know how much time was left. Stay tuned for today's video to see how the story continues. In his final days, Hoai Ca's father's condition worsened so quickly that the whole family could barely keep up. Just the day before, he had still managed to brace himself against the bed frame, slowly stepping out to the porch to look at the golden afternoon field stretching far into the distance. A light breeze passed through his silver hair, and he gave a tired but fulfilled smile, the smile of a father who finally got to see his daughter by his side after 20 years apart. Yet only a few days later, his legs no longer had the strength to stand. From slow, careful steps, to the point where even sitting up became a burden. Now, he could only lie motionless on the old wooden bed, a bed whose every creak when he shifted made Hoai Ca flinch, afraid it might be hurting him. The gentle afternoon sunlight slipping through the cracks of the door, once so warm, had become harsh to his weakened body. He had to close his eyes to escape the burning sensation it brought. His breathing grew heavier by the hour. Each time he tried to draw in a deep breath, his chest trembled as though he were fighting against his own body. The faint wheezing sound escaped weakly, yet it cut into the hearts of those who heard it like a blade. Hung's mother stood on the porch, quietly wiping away her tears, while Hung clenched his fists, trying to stay calm so that Hoai Ca wouldn't collapse. His eyes, the same eyes that once sparkled every time he looked at his daughter, could now only stay open for a few minutes each day. Every time he tried to direct his gaze toward Hoai Ca, his eyelids trembled, as if summoning the last of his strength. And whenever he opened them, Hoai Ca immediately leaned close, her voice trembling and barely louder than a breath. "Dad. I'm here." She was afraid that if she spoke even slightly louder, he wouldn't be able to bear it. Hoai Ca sat by the bed, her hand wrapped around her father's thin, fragile one. That hand had once been warm, once strong, now it held only coldness and tremor. She didn't dare let go. Didn't dare stand up. Didn't dare step into the next room. Even closing her eyes for a moment filled her with guilt, as if the instant she looked away, he might leave her forever. In her heart, Hoai Ca carried a vague but crushing fear. That if she left the bedside to get a glass of water, a box of medicine, or even to adjust the curtains, when she returned, she might never have the chance to speak to her father again. Time in that room passed unbearably slowly, each tick of the clock suffocated by silence. Only the faint sound of his breathing remained, the crinkle of tissues as Hoai Ca wiped her tears, and the heavy thud of her heart, aching, fearful, and helpless. Hung and his mother took turns keeping vigil almost day and night to care for her father. Although both tried to stay strong, walking lightly every time they entered the room, forcing faint, strained smiles. The heaviness in their eyes lingered, like thin streaks of rain clinging to a windowpane, impossible to wipe away. Hung sat down beside the bed, his broad shoulders, normally so steady, suddenly seemed burdened and weighed down. He wrapped an arm around the old man's back, each of his fingers tightening with utmost care. Every movement was gentle, slow, as though even the slightest excess of strength might bring pain to the frail body leaning against him. "Dad, lean on me, it'll help you breathe easier." His voice was hoarse, but still soft enough to keep his father from worrying. On the other side of the bed, Hung's mother held a warm towel, wrung so thoroughly that not a single drop remained. She lifted it and placed it on the old man's forehead, wiping bit by bit, as if soothing him, as if silently saying all the things she couldn't bring herself to voice. Sometimes her gaze drifted across his gaunt face, and in those brief moments her eyes reddened, on the verge of breaking. But she immediately lowered her head, biting her lip hard to keep the tears from falling, afraid that even the smallest sob would make the room feel even heavier. No one said much. No one dared to. In that quiet space, every breath he took, every whisper of wind slipping through the cracks, even the ticking of the clock became painfully clear. Everyone understood, every moment that passed was more precious than gold, and the time left with him was being shortened by the second. Tony was carried close to his grandfather. The little boy was far too young to understand what was happening. His round eyes simply stared at the old man with the purest curiosity in the world. Tony's tiny hand reached out, groping through the air as if searching for an invisible anchor. And when it finally touched his grandfather's thin finger, marked with blue veins, the child instinctively tightened his grip, a small, instinctive squeeze that felt warm enough to break a heart. The old man's finger trembled slightly at the touch of that tiny, warm hand. His lips twitched, as though trying to form a smile. A smile for the grandson he had only been close to for a few days. For the daughter he had waited 20 years to see. For the little family gathered around him now. But his body was far too weak, the smile never fully appeared before fading into the weight of his labored breathing. In that moment, anyone watching could only stand still, swallowing the lump in their throat. The air in the room seemed to thicken, frozen with sorrow and helplessness. No one dared to cry aloud, afraid their sobs would tire him further, or perhaps afraid that once they started, they might never be able to stop. That night, a light rain began to fall unexpectedly. Not a heavy downpour, not thunder or lightning, just a fine drizzle, falling softly, steadily. The raindrops tapped gently on the old tin roof, a small sound, yet echoing like an endless sigh from the sky. As if the heavens, too, were grieving with the little family in this house, as if nature itself sensed what was drawing near. In the narrow room, the dim yellow light cast a fragile glow over Hoai Ca's father's face. That face had become so gaunt that every line of his cheekbones, every wrinkle carved by hardship and illness, stood out clearly. He lay there, breathing slowly and unevenly. Each breath seemed like a struggle, as if he had to gather every last fragment of strength just to hold on to a life slipping steadily out of his grasp. Time passed in suffocating silence. Then his eyelids trembled, slowly opening, as though the effort alone drained nearly all his remaining energy. His gaze turned directly to Hoai Ca, unwavering, unfaltering. A long, very long look. so deep that anyone meeting it would feel themselves pulled in, unable to look away. That gaze held regret, love, and longing, as if he were trying to carve every detail of his daughter's face into memory, afraid that once he closed his eyes, there would be no chance to see her again. Hoai Ca leaned close. Her trembling hand reached out, gently stroking the thin, bony back of his hand. His palm was cold, so cold she felt that if she loosened her grip even slightly, he would slip into the darkness. "Dad. I'm right here." Her voice cracked mid-sentence, fragile as if it might shatter at any moment. Her father tried to move his lips. A long silence stretched out, a silence that felt like an entire lifetime, before he managed to force air through his throat, forming a raspy whisper that blended with the sound of the rain outside. "Ca, don't cry." He paused, breathing painfully. His chest rose and fell weakly, as if he needed to gather momentum to speak the last words he had been holding inside for days. "Dad, will go first." Each word dropped heavily into the room, painful but strangely gentle, the voice of a father trying to remain calm only so his child wouldn't be afraid. He closed his eyes to gather the last remnants of breath, then opened them slightly to look at Hoai Ca once more. "But Dad won't leave you, ever again." His voice trembled, filled with love and regret, a late apology for everything he had never been able to say. His eyes followed each tear sliding down Hoai Ca's cheeks, the tears she had tried so hard to hold back for days, but could no longer contain now. The yellow light flickered with each soft gust of wind through the window. It cast a glow on Hoai Ca's face, making her tears glimmer like the rain outside, filled with pain, helplessness, and the fear of an approaching loss growing closer with every passing minute. Hoai Ca could no longer hold back. All the pain, all the fear, all the pent-up sorrow she had been carrying these past days burst out in that very moment. She cried like a child, tears falling endlessly, her shoulders trembling with each sob. She clutched her father's hand tightly, leaned close, her voice breaking, interrupted by shaky breaths. "Dad, please don't go. I just found you again. I haven't even had the chance to make up for anything." Her cries weren't loud, not wailing or screaming, just small, broken sounds, yet they cut straight into the heart. They carried regret, helplessness, and the terror of losing the person she had finally found after 20 long years. Her father tried to raise his hand. That hand trembled, fragile, weightless, and Hoai Ca had to support it so he could touch her face. His rough fingers brushed gently against her cheek, trying to wipe away a falling tear. A slow, weak movement, but filled with all the love he had gathered in his final breath. He looked at her, his vision fading but still holding on to the tenderness that wrapped around her. "You live happily, then Dad can rest easy." His voice was as soft as a passing breeze, yet it carved itself deeply into every fiber of Hoai Ca's heart. It was his last wish, his final message. The final thread tying him to this world. After saying those words, his lips moved again, but no sound came out. The hand he had rested on Hoai Ca's cheek grew lighter, lighter, and then slipped gently to the side, like a weary bird returning to the sky. Those were the last words he ever spoke to his daughter. Then his breathing began to fade. The breaths Hoai Ca had grown familiar with, faint but always audible, were now nothing more than wisps of air, flickering like a candle in the wind. Each inhale was as thin as a thread on the verge of snapping, wavering between life and death. His already weak chest rose and fell so lightly it was almost invisible, as if clinging to the very last fragments of existence. Hoai Ca sat close, holding her own breath, afraid that even the slightest movement on her part would extinguish his. His breathing grew weaker, and weaker, and farther apart, until she had to lower her ear to his chest, straining to hear even the faintest wheeze. But even those fragile sounds drifted away, dissolving like mist into the night rain outside. And then, the hand in hers, the same hand she had held tightly for days, suddenly slackened. Softened. Completely limp. Hoai Ca felt every tiny change with painful clarity. The warmth she'd known began to slip away like water flowing out of her palm. In its place came a slow, creeping chill spreading from his palm down to each finger, a cold so sharp it made her shiver, a cold she wanted desperately to stop, to warm, to bring back. She gently squeezed his hand, tender and pleading. "Dad, squeeze my hand, just a little." But that hand remained motionless. Cold and slack like a brittle branch long past the storm season. His chest no longer rose. No more labored breaths. No sign of life at all. In the small room, time seemed to stop. Silence. A cruel, suffocating silence that wrapped itself around Hoai Ca's throat. Outside, the sound of rain hitting the tin roof suddenly grew louder. Every drop landed with a sharp, echoing crack, then shattered like thousands of tiny, grieving cries. It felt as if the whole sky was mourning with her. And Hoai Ca's world shattered with the rain. She sat frozen, her shoulders stiff as stone, as if she had lost control of her own body. Only her tears continued to fall, silently, relentlessly. Sometimes onto her hands. Sometimes onto her father's. Sometimes onto the bed, soaking into the old blanket. The pain was too great. Too sudden. Too deep. Like an invisible blade slicing straight through her heart, tearing it apart piece by piece. 20 years of searching. 20 years longing for a single moment of resting her head on her father's shoulder. 20 years believing she might never have that chance. And then, when she finally got to say, "Dad." When she finally got to hold his hand, to make up for the love they'd lost. When the warmth of reunion had just begun to settle. It all vanished. So quickly she couldn't grasp it, couldn't hold on to it, couldn't do anything. Just a few short months together. Far too little to make up for 2 decades of waiting. And now, Hoai Ca had lost her father once more. But this time, the pain wasn't the hollow ache of a child abandoned. It was the agony of a daughter who had just rediscovered her father, just begun to love him, just begun to hope. Only to watch him slip away in her arms. This pain was deeper, sharper, far more merciless than the first. Hoai Ca lowered her head, cupping her father's cold hand in both of her own, pressing it gently to her face as if trying to return some last bit of warmth. Her tears fell, streaming down between his fingers, tears of desperation that nothing could stop. Hung rushed over immediately, wrapping his arms tightly around Hoai Ca before she collapsed onto the cold floor. He held her close, supporting her trembling shoulders as if trying to use his entire body to absorb the blow she had just endured. Hoai Ca couldn't say a word. She simply folded over, clutching her chest as if her heart inside was being squeezed by an invisible hand. Her tears flowed uncontrollably, not loud sobs, but choked, broken gasps so painful they barely formed a sound. Hung rested his chin on his wife's head, his hand trembling as he gently stroked her back. But he himself couldn't hide the redness in his eyes. He wanted to speak. Wanted to comfort her. Wanted to take away even a little of her pain. But he stayed silent. Because he knew, no words in this world could soothe the wound Hoai Ca was carrying. No embrace could hold such a loss. No warmth was enough to shield her from the hollow ache inside. In the dim room, where the flickering yellow light fell across Hoai Ca's devastated face, only 2 sounds remained. the broken sobs of a daughter who had lost her father for the second time, and the scattered raindrops falling outside, soft, sparse, but each one sounding like a farewell for a man who had spent his whole life searching for his child. A silent night. A wordless grief falling heavily upon them. Stay tuned for the next episode to see how this heartbreaking story continues.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến video. Trời, mới có 7 phút mà nhảy 140 lượt xem. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều vì đã yêu thương và theo dõi kênh của mình nha. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong video sau. Tạm biệt.